Welcome to MCN. Now we're about to ride around the MCN 250 test route with MCN reader Gavin Freeman,
Hello.
who is going to be brushing up on his riding skills ahead of the coming season. But before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about bike setup. Now I know you've bought this bike second-hand, Gavin, and I wondered if you've made any changes to it since you've had it.
No, I've not made any changes to it in terms of setup. It's as when I bought it.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm confident enough to make those sort of changes at this point.
Well, you know, when bikes leave the factory, they've all got very generic settings to suit everybody of all shapes and sizes. And there's a few little things you can do to your bike just with what's there standard to make the bike more comfortable to ride, more enjoyable and ultimately safer. So we're going to start with levers. So we're going to start with your clutch and brake levers. So if you hop on, we'll get you measured up.
Okay.
So it's really important to get your clutch and brake levers in a really comfortable position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crack the bolts off that hold the levers on, like this, pretty simple. Then what I'm going to ask you to do is to put your hands on the bars in your natural riding position and then reach for the levers. Okay, so where you want the levers to be is in a straight line with your arm. So how are they feeling now?
I would say sort of slightly high,
Yep.
maybe.
Okay, so if we just turn these levers round and like this, down like that, how's that?
Yeah, that feels more sort of in line with the arm, like
more
you're saying,
comfortable.
yeah.
Let me crack these on again. Right, next we're going to think about our foot controls.
Okay.
Right, let's do your rear brake now. So the best way to get into position is if you put one leg down so the bike's completely upright, put your hands back on the bars, and then basically what you're looking for with the back brake, you don't want to be in a position where your foot's too far up all the time trying to reach it, and it's not too much of a reach down either. So how does it feel for you? I mean, it looks pretty good, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, that feels pretty sort of natural
Yeah.
in that position, yeah.
Okay, well if you hop off, if you do need to change it at some point, let me show you how it's done. So we're going to use my trusty 10mm spanner, and down here at the bottom of the brake reservoir there's a 10mm nut, so we can just crack that off, and then what we simply do is we can take this clamp off of the brake pedal and turn it round, which will raise the lever up and down. Or some bikes have actually got a locking nut and you can turn the whole shaft of the bolt to raise it up and down. It's the same thing. But in any case, if you're not comfortable doing a job like this, you can always take it into your dealer and it's an easy job for them.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's get you back on and we'll do the gear lever side.
Okay.
So hold the bike up with your right leg, get your left foot on your peg. Right, does that feel in the right place? I mean, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it might be slightly up.
Too high?
A little bit too high, yeah.
Okay. Okay, if you jump off, I'll show you how to adjust it. Okay, so to be able to move this gear lever up and down, all we need to do is turn this rod. So the first thing we need to do is just crack off the nuts there and here. And then it's a simple case of turning the rod. So you can see I put a little bit of black tape here just as a start point, just so we can see how far we're adjusting it. And it's just a simple case of turning the rod, and then you'll see the gear lever go down. So once we've got it where we want, just tighten up these locking nuts. And we're good to go. Right, let's talk about suspension, everyone's favourite subject. Have you changed the suspension on here at all?
No, it's been left as it was from the shop. It's not the sort of thing I'd like to sort of mess around with at this stage.
Yeah.
For my own abilities.
Well, it's always a good idea when you buy a used bike is to set the suspension back to factory settings. because you never know what someone might have fiddled with in the past. The best place to find those factory settings are in your handbook, which I've got here. And what they'll give you information on how to set the spring preload, which is the amount of sag that your forks and shock have got. Your rebound damping, which is how fast the suspension units rebounds, like pop back up again after they've been compressed. And then finally compression damping, which is all about how fast the suspension dives when you push it down. So we're not going to get into how to set the bike up because we could be here for weeks and weeks and weeks, but it's a really good idea to put everything back to standard. The manufacturers know best, and what we need to do first is to look at the handbook and look at the preload first. So if we look at the forks, the preload generally on most suspension is a nut at the top of the fork leg. Now you've got fully adjustable suspension on this bike, and you've got preload, you've got rebound damping and compression. Some bikes have only got one damping setting and one preload adjuster. Some bikes have got nothing, but you've got the full suite here, which is really, really good. And the preload, when they talk about preload with forks, they give you a number. It could be like a number from 1 to 10 or something like that. And basically what that means is it's an adjustment. It's the amount of turns that you've got to introduce into the preload adjuster. And say, for example, it was a number 5 they give you. What you need to do is get a socket. This is a 17 on your bike. And I've also put tape on the shaft as well, so you can, if you lose count, you can see where you are again. You can see the turns. So if they've given you an adjustment of say 5, what you need to do is wind this nut completely off till it's fully out, and then count 5 turns back in again.
Okay.
And that's your number 5. So that's the preload sorted. Let's put the socket down. Get our trusty screwdriver. So first of all, we'll do rebound damping, and the rebound adjusters are normally on top of the fork leg, which you've got here. And your handbook quite helpfully gives you settings, which you've got a comfort setting, you've got a normal road riding setting, you've got a sport setting. But for today, we'll just put everything back to its road setting. And what this BMW has helpfully got, which very few bikes have got, is a dial with a numbered dial, so you can actually, if it tells you you need to have a number 3 rebound damping, you just set it to number 3. It's really, really easy. But if you haven't, with damping adjustments, the way you adjust it is the complete opposite to preload. If they gave you a figure of number 3, you would wind the damper adjuster all the way in, and it's either a click or a turn, and then count 3 out. So either 3 turns out or 3 clicks out. That's your rebound. So with your compression damping adjusters, they're normally found at the bottom of the fork leg, and it's exactly the same process. If they've given you a figure of number 3, you'd wind the screw all the way in till it doesn't go anymore, and you'd wind it back out either 3 clicks or 3 turns. So that's the forks return back to standard settings. Now we've got to do exactly the same with the shock. So the same principles apply. We've got to adjust preload and damping. The damping adjusters are the same, they're done with a screwdriver. But instead of using a socket for the preload, we'll use a C-spanner. So your bike, like many, have got an adjuster at the top of the shock that you click the C-spanner into, and you can adjust it like that. Other bikes have got remote knobs for preload adjusting, which are a lot easier. And generally in the manuals, you'll find a figure like you will with forks, like a number 6 will be all the way out and screw 6 in. Using the C-spanner is a little bit more difficult. Quite often shocks are either seized or they're really inaccessible. The only good thing about that is that most people won't have touched it in the first place. So generally, most bikes are left standard in that way. Manuals talk about things like sag, but we won't go into that now because it's a bit of a big subject. But what you can adjust is the damping, and that's what a lot of people would fiddle with. And the damping adjustments on the shock are the reverse to the forks, helpfully. Okay. So at the bottom is where your rebound adjuster is. And if they give you a figure of number 3, you turn all the way in and then either click 3 out or 3 turns out. And the compression adjuster is at the top of the shock, and the same thing applies. So let's talk a little bit about electronic setup. So a lot of modern bikes, like your bike, has got lots of rider aids and rider modes. What kind of settings do you run generally?
So normally I keep it in the sport setting. Obviously if it's then raining or wet weather, and journey out on the odd journey in the wet, then I'll stick it into the wet setting, but
Yeah.
they're the two I keep to.
Yeah, that's good because this has got 4 riding modes, hasn't it? There's rain, then there's sport, then there's race, and then there's slick. So the sport mode is the one that's kind of got the friendliest throttle response, the most traction control, the most ABS intervention, and that's exactly what I'd be running on the road. I'd choose a riding mode that keeps the bike nice and safe. And also, if the bike's got electronic suspension, quite often the electronic suspension is tied in with the rider modes as well. And I like to ride the bikes quite soft. And the softer the bikes are, the easier they are to manage, the more grip you've got, and obviously the safer you're going to be as well. Last but by no means least are your tyres, which are probably the most important part of your motorcycle. I can see you've got very good tyres on here, mate, so you haven't got too much to worry about. But in general terms is to check the condition of your tyres, to make sure they're legal with the tread depth, to make sure they're still round, so the tyres work properly, and also tyre pressures. So it's always a good idea to go with the manufacturer's pressures. I mean, on a bike like this, it will probably be 36 psi front, 42 rear, and all modern tyres on the road are designed to work with those pressures. As soon as you deviate from those pressures, then the bike's not going to be as nice to ride. You might forfeit a little bit of stability and the bike's not going to be as safe. So standard road pressures are everything. The only time you'd ever drop pressures was if you ever to take this bike on a track day, and you'd have to lower the pressures a little bit just because the tyres heat up so much. But for the road, standard pressures are absolutely key. And then finally is choosing the right type of tyres for your bike. So in general terms, there are 4 kind of stages of road tyres for sports bikes like this or general road bikes. And you've got sports touring tyres, then you've got sports tyres, which is what you've got, these Pirelli Diablo Rosso 4s. And then above that, you've got like a fast road tyre and then a track day tyre. So generally for road bikes, sports touring tyre or a sports tyre is best. And they're the tyres that are going to give you the most grip in all conditions. They're going to warm up fastest and they're going to give you good life as well.
Well, that's good to know. Obviously, as I'm sort of cleaning the bike on a regular basis, I do look at the tyres I'm doing it to make sure they're in good condition. But the pressures are actually something which maybe I'm not so checking so often or as much as I should do. So that's definitely something I'll be taking on board and going forward with.
That's exactly right. Pressures are something that kind of degrade over time, that you don't notice them actually going down. So checking them is a really good idea. So that's your bike returned to its former standard glory. So I reckon now we should get kitted up and get out on the MCN 250.
Yep, let's do it.
So there's a little insight into how to set your bike up perfectly for you. Now these changes may seem small, but they actually add up to quite a big difference when you're riding, and that will make you enjoy your ride more and be safer. So all that's left for me to say is thank you to Gavin for accompanying me around the MCN 250. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more videos like this coming very soon.